Welcome to another episode of Breaking Mayberry, the show where two guys try to understand 2018 America by watching some old-timey America through the Andy Griffith Show. I'm Marty Schneider.
I'm Dan Ludwig.
Before we get into today's episode, I want to throw out some love for Twitter user Moranis McDude for sending us something amazing. We got fan art.
It's been a very long time dream to generate something creatively that resulted in fan art, and I rubbed a monkey's paw that made it the result of an Andy Griffith podcast.
And it's your quote, too.
It's my quote about Andy Griffith being the devil. It's beautiful art. Like, it's absolutely gorgeous.
No, I'm so happy that it exists, and it's this wonderful picture of Andy Griffith as, like, Mephistopheles. And there's, like, a Church of Satan in the foreground. It rules.
It's genuinely unsettling to look at.
Oh, yeah, no. We considered making it in our iTunes art, but, like, that's not a vibe to put out. No one would listen to us.
It's too
sinister. In a good way, Moranis McDude.
They did too good of a job making sinister art.
Yeah. But, yeah, I'm very excited about it. I've never had fan art made.
I can't believe this is the thing.
When I wrote for Something Awful, we had fanfic at one point. Somebody created like an entire separate Twitter account to post plot synopses of a fake TV show starring people who wrote for current releases and general.
Was it erotic?
No erotic fanfic.
I feel like that's a level that you graduate to, is like there's fanfic, fan art, and then it becomes erotic.
You know that if this continues, there's going to be like Marty/Dan fanfic.
Yeah, I've made peace with that.
And I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Maybe some time traveling fic where it's like a Pleasantville situation where we get sucked into the television. I'm just spitballing here. I'm definitely not saying anyone should actually write this for us. Wink, wink.
If you give too much of a plot synopsis, then it's not fanfic. Then it's just a commission. Then it's just someone doing, like, you can't provide any guidance whatsoever, or it doesn't count.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But it would be a big love to Moranis McDude for sending us that truly disturbing, unsettling art. Big fan.
Yeah, well done.
Today's episode, we are covering 2 episodes. I'm actually excited because I like both of these episodes.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to talk for a period of time about 2 episodes that I'm very happy about, as opposed to last week, which was just us screaming.
I mean, it was still, like, I loved the last episode in a very confusing way. This one, I wanted to skip Opie's charity because I was like, I'm not going to have anything to say about this.
I have some stuff on Opie's charity.
Yeah.
I have some stuff on Opie's charity. But, the 2 episodes, we're still in the middle of a chock block of Don Weiss.
The Weiss-assance.
So Don Weiss directed both of these, and both written by Arthur Nope. One of them was written by Arthur Stander. That's episode 8, Opie's Charity. Mm-hmm. The other one written by David Adler. Last time we saw David Adler was when he wrote Irresistible Andy, the Andy Griffith fuck episode.
He writes a lot of the more off the rails Andy Griffith episodes.
Yeah, he seems to be obsessed with hookups. This is one of those things that you notice when you like watch these all the way through and you start to go in depth. We'll start to see patterns of the writers. Like Arthur Stander really likes to do the illegal shit. He really likes the like crime and criminal aspect. Yeah, let's just say it. David Adler's horny.
David Adler is extremely horny. He takes the wheel of every episode and steers it right into horniness.
I will say the most attractive women tend to show up in David Adler episodes.
Yes.
Yeah, because he introduced us to Ellie, and in the episode we're about to talk about, A Feud Is A Feud, we're introduced to, like, a couple that wants to wed. And they're both, like, not just Mayberry 10s. They're perfect 10s, both of them.
They're, like, 1950s 10s. Like, they're, like, the Lauren Bacall beautiful. Like...
Yeah, both of them. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about episode 8, Andy's Charity. We're talking about episode 9, A Feud Is A Feud. So we're going to open ourselves up with episode 8. And so here is the one-sentence Wikipedia summary of Opie's Charity. Andy is disappointed in Opie for giving so little to a charity drive until he learns the reason. Wow, way to give away the twist, Wikipedia. Meanwhile, a former Mayberry resident who was presumed dead unexpectedly returns to town.
It's weird because normally the A plot is the more insane plot and the B plot is like something more mild. Complete reversal. The A plot is like the most mundane thing possible and the B plot is a man returns from the dead.
Yeah, this is so, like, I know I usually say that this is the one sentence summary. This time it was a 2-sentence summary because this is the first time in these episodes that we've seen the A plot, B plot system. So a little bit of advanced storytelling for the Andy Griffith Show. You know, most of these episodes have just been very linear. Thing happens. Opie yells, thing happens.
And the A-B plot is usually the plots merge at the end of the episode. Not so much. At the end of the episode, Aunt B stands on the plot of the A plot and just sort of throws a harpoon at plot B and just like violently through force of will connects them together.
The B plot is her white whale.
Yeah. She built
from hell's heart I stab at thee.
Aunt B like grabs the B plot from across an abyss and just yanks it over to the A plot. It's insane to watch.
But actually, let's go ahead and say that means that Aunt B actually gets to do something.
No, this was the episode where Aunt B becomes a character.
Yeah.
And basically, like, grows into her role of just, like, the person who calls Andy on his shit.
Yeah, which rules.
Yeah.
Because there needs to be someone who does that. Alright, so, here's the plot of the episode. So it starts off with a pretty neat little scene. Andy and Opie are on the sidewalk outside of the police station practicing baseball. It's pretty cute.
It's adorable.
Opie's pitching to him, Andy's catching, father-son stuff, right? When the town's, like, busybody, I guess.
I think, like, the designated annoying woman.
And, like, we say that she's annoying because she's just, like, socially active.
Yeah.
So Annabelle Sylvie comes in. She comes up to Andy and asks him to be part of her charity drive. She's running a charity drive for the Under-Children Privilege Fund.
The Under-Children Privilege Fund. For those who have been crushed under the weight of a massive volume of children. It's such a... it's the worst name for a charity I've ever... Not the worst, but like the Underprivileged Children's Fund?
The Underprivileged Children's Fund. It's kind of vague, like, what they define underprivileged as, but, like, it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
This woman is running a charity drive, and she asks Andy to be on the board of this charity. It sounds like it's been an annual thing, and he's always on the board, etc., etc. And while she's talking to him, there's a pretty funny bit. Andy, like, takes her umbrella and positions her like she's a batter, and while she's talking, because she talks on for a little while, they do batting practice, and Andy gets to be a pitcher with an actual batter there as a strike zone.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat. They go into the court, or into the jailhouse, and Opie goes off on his merry way.
Oh yeah, Opie just fucks off, as he is one to do.
To go wander the streets alone.
Yeah.
You know, like 6-year-olds do.
Yeah. And then him and, I'm going to forget her name.
Annabelle.
And him and Annabelle get into a conversation where they begin talking about her dead husband. She is a widow.
Well, they talk about her, like, social activities. Like, she's always planning stuff. He mentioned that after the boys came back from the war, she, like, threw dances and stuff for them. And it's a really funny line where he's like, of course, I kind of figured those boys had been through enough.
Yeah. But for these 2 episodes, Andy mentions the war a lot, which is something I want to come back to, but like it's sort of weird to think of like Andy as a former soldier. Like Andy Griffith fucking killed some people. Like,
I wonder if that's gonna go away as the series proceeds. I feel like there'll be less military references the deeper we get into the 60s. The closer we get to Vietnam, I think the less the military is going to be talked about.
I really want season 4. A little German boy shows up in Mayberry, like, you killed my father, prepare to die. Like, I want, like, not just Andy Griffith was a soldier in France, like, Andy Griffith was, like, killed some men. Like, a history of violence, but with this show.
I want, like, season 6 to go full McCarthyism. Are you now, or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
Don Knotts, Barney Fife, you would get, like, 2 seconds into, like, pitching McCarthyism, and he'd already have, like, been on board for 2 years.
Oh, I've got a list. So, they're talking about all the stuff that she's done, and she says, like, well, I have to keep busy since my Tom passed away. Mm-hmm. And Andy Griffith, I love this scene so much. Andy's straight up, with zero tact whatsoever, is just like, well, your husband wasn't drunk, yes. So what do you fucking do?
And then she keeps trying to, like, rationalize it and make it okay. She's like, well, he may have had a drink every now and then, a little bit of tonic for his health. And he was like, yeah, I've never seen someone take their tonic with a beer chaser. Like, yeah. Jesus, Andy, like...
He's just fucking vicious. Just like, hey, did you know your dead husband's a drunk? Yeah. Did you know your dead husband wasn't drunk?
She's old. Are you trying to kill her? He's throwing social politeness haymakers the entire conversation.
It actually rules. I like this scene because there's a moment where, like, she tries to justify it some more, and Andy doesn't even say anything. He just looks at her.
Yeah.
He just gives her that cut the shit look. And she goes, yeah, he was a drunk. And we should mention the way Tom died is supposedly he went on a business trip to Charlottesville and got run over by a taxi cab.
Yeah.
Which is a silly thing, but I am going to say it kind of adds to the theme of, like, the big city is scary.
Yeah.
Don't go out there. If you go out there, someone, something will get you.
Why is getting run over... The show presents getting run over by a taxi cab as a silly way to die. How is that silly? Taxis run people over probably all the time. Like,
yeah, it's the 1960s, too. Cars are bigger.
Yeah.
Granted, we discovered earlier that cars are apparently very light.
Yes.
Right? Remember, children can push cars in this world?
But Andy Griffith was like, yeah, getting hit by a taxi cab is a pretty, unseemly way to, undignified way to die.
I mean, it is an undignified way to die, right?
What?
But, people die getting hit by cars all the time.
Pretty consistently. I'd say almost every day someone is killed by a car. It's a weird thing to,
Please don't send us statistics about car deaths.
I cannot emphasize enough that was a tongue-in-cheek reference. I feel like I'm gonna get...
Don't at us. Don't correct us.
Jesus Christ.
So let's move forward. So then the subject of the underprivileged children's drive comes up. Annabelle says that they were doing a drive at the schools as well. School children were getting on this. And Andy, assuming the best of his son, says, well, I bet Opie's at the top of the givers, huh? And Annabelle goes, no. She delivers bad news about the family a lot more tactfully than Andy does.
Yeah.
But she points out that, he's only given 3 cents. The other kids have given $1. Some have given $2. And at first, again, Andy tries to justify this, sheriff doesn't make much. They must be tapped like Opie, because she mentions that the next lowest gave 5 cents, and Opie gave 3 cents.
Yeah.
And she goes, no, that dude that gave 5 cents was one of the underprivileged children.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, Opie gave less than one of the recipients of the charity, is the big scandal of the episode.
Right, so Annabelle leaves at the same time that Opie comes back into the show, into the frame. And
this is round one of an 3-part debate between Andy and Opie?
Yeah, it goes for a while, which, again, I liked, because, modern sitcoms, especially in the 90s or whatnot, everything would kind of build to the one discussion, and then you learn the lesson with the one discussion.
Yeah.
Which is not the way I remember stuff going on at my household. There was always we'll talk about this more when we get home, young man.
Yeah.
So I like this.
But every time that Andy does we'll discuss this more, it's because Andy is getting his ass kicked. They throw down on the matter of whether or not Opie should donate to charity 3 times, and every time it's because, if this were a boxing match, Andy would be bloodied on the ground, and Opie would just be punching his corpse. He goes toe-to-toe with a small child on the matter of societal obligation and gets destroyed every time. Just on semantics.
All right, so let's get into those semantics. So Andy is justifiably angry to hear that Opie is not giving his share.
Yeah.
And because he happens to know that Opie has the money.
Mm-hmm.
Opie has $2 and something in his piggy bank.
Yeah.
So Andy's giving him the instructions. He's saying, no, we're giving him a lecture.
Yeah.
Saying, and there's a pretty funny, Andy clearly has no idea how to talk to his child. He tries to use, somewhat high-level mathematics to prove this. He says that there's something like 400, he doesn't say children, he says boys. There's 400 needy boys in the city alone, or in this county alone. Or 1.5 boys per square mile.
Yeah.
And, we just learned last week that Opie doesn't know how to write, and you're going to come at him with ratios?
Yes! And Opie is justifiably, for a small child, horrified at the concept of a half boy.
It's a real funny bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, Opie is, immediately winning the discussion on the basis of, how bad at this Andy Griffith is.
Andy cannot come down to Opie's level.
Yeah.
So he gets frustrated, and Aunt B kind of shows up to spring Opie from this.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives Andy a chance to go, well, we'll talk about this later, because he's got to, collect his wits about him. He's just got his ass handed to him.
He's, just on the basis of, fundamental nature of having an argument. They don't even get to, any sort of, ethics or just the subject of what charity is.
Yeah. They're very confused on that. We should point out that Opie makes it very clear the reason he's not giving more is he's saving up money to buy something for his girlfriend.
That which is led to by another very good exchange. Opie is on point under this writer, where he says haven't you given someone something because you wanted to? And he was yeah, I punched my friend in the head. I loved giving him that. It was that was free.
Ronnie Howard is getting better too. We made fun of him being a bad actor earlier. Take that, accomplished director Ron Howard.
Do you think we'll ever get on his radar?
Maybe.
God. But yeah, no, he starts bragging about punching another kid in the head to defend his girlfriend Charlotte, and there's one line that's weirdly badass where he's that's not charity. Well, it was free, wasn't it? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Opie's
just slaughtering.
Opie is a savage this episode.
He can beat you with his fists or his wits, ladies and gentlemen.
Opie is a Renaissance man for this episode.
So Aunt B shows up to take Opie home, and they leave, and Andy says goodbye to them, and he walks out, and he sees a man, and the man walks up and says, "Hey, Andy, how's it going?" And Andy goes, "Oh, have a good day, sir." And another man goes, "Don't you recognize me? It's me, Tom."
Yeah.
It's Tom, who we all thought was dead from the exchange a couple minutes ago. And Andy is flummoxed.
Yeah.
And he's just baffling. He's kind of babbling, where'd you... You're gone, Tom. You can't come back.
Which, again, it's one of a thing that keeps happening on the show where a Twilight Zone episode happens, but then suddenly isn't happening.
Yeah, there's an episode coming up that starts off very Rod Serling.
I know what you're talking about. It's a Twilight episode for the first 15 minutes, and then the last 5 minutes it realizes that it's not.
Yeah. Again, good. Cool.
Yeah.
So he pulls Tom into the courthouse because it won't do much good for people to see a dead man walking around the street.
Yeah, he pulls him in like it's going to the sight of him is going to destroy the fabric of society. People
get
are going,
in here.
Get in! Oh my God, there will be riots in the street. But yeah, no, he pulls him in, and they have the second who's on first conversation of the episode. Also, was humor in the 1960s just who Abbott and Costello ad nauseum?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's basically just like nobody explains anything, and everybody talks in the most convoluted way possible. Which, to be honest, not that different from modern humor. Like.
Yeah, basically every like joke conversation they have is just like, I don't understand the third word you said, and therefore I'm going to misinterpret the entire sentence. Like, but
eventually it comes out like. Finally, using his amazing detective skills, Andy pieces together that what Annabelle Sylvie did was she was too proud to admit, and this is a little fucked up, but what happened was Tom did not die. Tom just got sick of Annabelle, and Annabelle probably got sick of his drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And he fucked off for a little while. Sounds like he did go to Charlottesville.
He fucked off is very accurate because he barely doesn't say, I fucked off. Like,
yeah, he basically just says, well, I just took off for a couple of years and now I decided to come back. So he left her ass.
Yeah. Which, it should be established, he told her that he was leaving. He was like, he did the whole, I'm getting out of here, Annabelle, like I'm gone.
Right, like it's not like he disappeared and was presumed dead. She knew he was gone.
Yeah.
But Annabelle, too proud to admit that her husband left her, told everybody that he died instead, and went to the lengths of ordering a casket and like having a funeral. Now, here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
This episode goes kind of out of its way to put a lot of blame on Annabelle. Like, it even blames Annabelle for her husband's drinking a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is very screwed up. That said, if I was married to the kind of woman who would rather fake a funeral than say that I was gone, if I was married to that person, maybe I would drink too. It's kind of said that, like, both of these people have some shit to work through.
Yeah, no,
However, like, the fact that this dude was a drunk, definitely worse than Annabelle's pride.
The show does a good job of balancing blame, kind of. Like, I feel like any modern sitcom, it would have just been like, well, it's his fault for being a drunk. Like,
I mean, it definitely shifts more of the blame onto Annabelle.
Yeah.
And it does, like, make her responsible for his alcoholism. Like...
Oh, that's true. It does sort of be like, well, I'm only, like, he stops being a drunk, when he gets away from her. Point retracted, they don't do a good job balancing it at all.
They don't, which also, like, makes you wonder, like, well, why are you coming back then, man?
Yeah.
Like, this is clearly not a good relationship for either of you.
I mean, he's clearly not super into it because he's like, well, I came back because I got kind of lonely.
Oh. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. He didn't get laid for 2 years.
Yeah, and then he's like, that the slightest possible excuse for him to not, like, actually show up. He's like, oh, she's doing good? She's cool? Alright, I'm gonna bounce. I'm out. Like, never mind. I'm gone. Like, forget you saw my face.
Again, like, we all know what it's like to kind of check up on how an ex is doing. Like, he didn't have Facebook. He couldn't, like, stalk her electronically. But his only option was to, like, stop in and ask the town sheriff.
Do you think this was, like, the equivalent of Facebook stalking back then? Of, like, just...
Yes.
You know, you naturally faked your death because it's the only way you can get out of a marriage back then.
Of course.
That was probably the most regular thing back in the 1950s through 60s. Of just
burning cars off cliffs everywhere.
Just, like, every town had, like, 4 guys who had faked their death, like, hanging out in the bushes, being like, oh, what's going on? Yeah, I'm just seeing how she's doing without me. Alright, I'll see you guys later. Like, yeah.
Just have a support group. Like
just
that.
Go on a cross-state road trip.
Everybody's Tom Sawyer. So they do a funny bit where Andy gives Tom the, like, tour of his death. Mm-hmm. They go to the graveyard. Tom gets to, like, Ebenezer Scrooge this and look at his own gravestone. Mm-hmm. This is really funny because, like, you can tell that Andy Taylor is having so much fun with this. Once he figures out what's going on, he's just tickled for it by everything.
I think, not like, this is funny, but like, yeah, take it, old man. You, like, watch your fucking grave. Like, and he is taking oh god, I'm about to mispronounce this word. Schadenfreude? Yeah. Oh, okay, I got it. Yeah. He's taking some fucking Schadenfreude at this guy watching his life just not be there anymore. Like, he delights in it. Andy Griffith is the devil.
Honestly, I mean, I can't blame Andy for this. I would do it too.
No, also, it's fucking funny.
Also, literally zero of this is Andy's problem. So, let's point out, by the way, Andy doesn't really have a problem in this episode. Don Knotts does not appear in this episode.
Don Knotts does not appear in these 2 episodes. Don Knotts is MIA for 2 episodes.
He's in the next one, isn't he? No, he is not. You're correct.
Yeah. I think Don Knotts might be gone for more than this. Okay. I think I might be 3 episodes in a row.
Okay.
Which later, when there's any sort of thing where I need to make a case where Don Knotts' character is a serial killer or anything like that, I'm going to reference this.
Sure. He was
like,
gone for 3 weeks. No one knows his whereabouts.
Yeah, Don Knotts was gone for 3 episodes. He was cutting someone's head off in a bayou somewhere.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. So they're at the cemetery. It's pretty funny bits where he's learning all about his funeral, and apparently it was a fine funeral. They keep referencing how great this funeral was.
Super weird.
Well, apparently Annabelle's a great event planner. Right?
Yeah.
So
of course. Yeah. So
there's a really funny bit where Andy is trying to brag all of the city councilmen were here, and Tom is even Bill Billson, whatever. I don't remember the name. And
it's an
even
unmemorable name.
Well, I hated him. How dare Annabelle invite him to my funeral?
So after that, he brings him back to his house,
right, where
Charity Battle Part 2 commences.
He eventually convinces Tom to call Annabelle, who, by the way, let's point out, Annabelle completely knows that Tom is not dead.
Yes.
So Tom's existence should be less of a surprise to her than anyone else.
She fucking faints.
She does. She, passes out. We don't see this. We see, Andy's half of a telephone conversation.
Yeah.
But she passes out.
Which Andy hears over the phone and is like, all right, well, I'm going to hang up and do a nice quip. Your wife passed out, dude.
Yeah, you should probably go check that out.
She's fucking down.
You should probably go deal with that, I guess.
Yeah.
Get out of my house is what he's basically saying.
Yeah, he's like, he's delighted. He's like, this is great, but also I'm done with it. I need to, thank you for this brief respite for getting, logically destroyed by my child. You need to go so I'm gonna win this one, I'm pretty sure.
I gotta go back to the A plot now.
Yeah.
You need to leave.
Yeah, and he goes in and he's like, alright, Opie, I have a fruit metaphor that's gonna fuck up your shit. Let's do this. He's so proud. He's like, so you want this apple, and I decide I'm gonna take the whole thing. How do you feel about that, Opie? And Opie, bounces back with well, there's a worm in it, so I'm fine. Which Andy is flummoxed by and sort of, gets not adult upset. He's child argument upset. No, there's no hypothetical worm in the apple. And then he describes the concept of charity as cutting the apple in half and sharing it.
Want to point out, Andy Griffith's advocating for socialism. Just throwing it out there.
We're gonna have a debate there. I don't know where this falls in terms of anything close to economic advocacy.
Here's the thing. It's not socialism because he's advocating. I know I just said he's advocating for socialism, but it's not quite socialism. The idea is there that people who have a lot should give to those who do not. However, there's no state enforcement.
Yeah.
In this, which I guess makes it not socialism.
I mean, a lot of socialists, I think, will come down as anti-charity, basically saying that it's just leaving the welfare of the less fortunate at the mercy of the wealthy.
Which is kind of where they get at, what this shows up with, right?
Wait, is this a pro-socialism episode? I have no fucking idea.
It borders on that and then veers away at the last minute.
See, alright, it's jumping ahead a little bit, but the reason I was sort of befuddled by this episode, I couldn't tell how I felt about it, was there's a moral of this story. The moral of the story shows up drunk at 3 a.m. and just kind of stumbles in and is sort of charity is vanity, and then throws up on the ground and passes out. And it's do you want to elaborate on that? And the Andy Griffith Show is absolutely not. Moving on to the next thing. But
after losing round 2, Andy does what any parent would do and says, screw it, I'm the parent, go to your room.
Well, alright, so the reason he loses round 2 is because he advocates for the splitting of the apple as a thing that would be more fair. Which Opie then contends that wouldn't be fair because they're not...
The worm doesn't get
any. The worm doesn't get any. And then Andy starts arguing about whether or not a worm deserves apple, and then it really just gets away from him, and he gets frustrated and sends Opie away.
Yeah, Andy's not really a master of rhetoric. Which is weird, because in the next episode, he encapsulates Shakespeare very well.
Debatable. He's the Bugs Bunny of this show, and he gets rocked by a child twice. We're gonna talk about his rendition of Shakespeare. I have some feelings.
Okay, alright. So he sends Opie to his room. Mm-hmm. And then Aunt B, this is what we were talking about earlier, where she's just like, here's the B plot, and I'm going to make the connection right now, motherfucker.
Yeah. Aunt B shows up to this show, just like, kicks in the door, is like, I can talk more than 3 lines now, and I'm going to use that privilege.
So she basically, she straight up calls Andy an Annabelle.
Yeah.
She's like, Annabelle Sylvie faked her husband's death because she was so worried about what people might think. Mm-hmm. And you are selling out your own child because you're embarrassed that people might be upset that, the sheriff's son didn't give enough money. Which, to be fair to Andy, not 100% why he was upset, but a little bit why he was upset. He was very upset that, he's the town sheriff, he's on the board of this charity, he's got an image to uphold. So some of it was his own vanity, but some of it was also just I don't want to raise a selfish brat.
Yeah.
So, Aunt B's not 100% right. But she's not 100% wrong either.
The episode basically comes down kinda, not hard, but it sort of comes down anti-charity by accident.
Sure. Which kind of. This episode kind of, we're trying to force a point of view on a show that has none. I mean, that's kind of what we're doing right now.
One thing that really bothered me was they keep whipping around these underprivileged kids, and they're like, there's so many underprivileged kids, and the entire time they're like, that's why you, a small child, should give more money. And it's like, no, that's why you need better state leadership. Apparently your state is awash in dying children.
It's North Carolina.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Again, the moral of the story is half-heartedly shows up and is basically the awkward stapling together of the first time there's ever been an A and a B plot.
And that's what Aunt B is doing here. She's like, you know that your son is a good boy. Mm-hmm. And because you're so vain, you're going to just ignore that and you don't trust him. Mm-hmm. So she calls Andy out. And Andy kind of shrugs and goes, all right, you're right. Calls Opie down, all right, come on. Come have supper with us. We're going to have some, they'll ignore it. And he kind of says, you know what? My boy is good. He is a good boy. And if he, wants to save his money this time, if he wants to withhold this time, sure. Maybe he deserves to. Whatever. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of kind of saying, if I don't want to pay my taxes this time and I want to buy a jet ski, I deserve it. I'm a job creator.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so he calls Opie down. Remember, Opie's been saving his money to buy something for his girlfriend, Charlotte. Mm-hmm. So Andy, having changed his tune, makes some suggestions do you guys want to go to the movies? Do you want to get her, I don't know, a toy or something? And Opie says, I'm not getting her a toy. I'm going to buy her a coat.
Yeah.
And everyone's a little confused. A coat? She's like, yeah, her coat is all full of holes and shabby, and the other kids made fun of her. Remember earlier?
We punched that kid.
He punched a kid in the face for making fun of Charlotte. That's why.
That little badass.
Yeah. And he was saving up enough money to buy her a coat for next winter. So, really, rather than having a system in place, the charity, mm-hmm. rather than having that set up, I think we're fine.
Yeah.
Rather than having a system in place, Opie takes direct action, essentially. But again, the only reason why this person is getting a coat out of it is that Opie likes her. So again, I guess you're kind of right. It is kind of
it's still charity. It's just charity for someone that Opie personally likes, which is
It's weird, right? Because there's no guarantee that she would get the coat.
The moral of this story doesn't, it's not in a direction that makes any sense.
We're trying to force a point of view on something that deliberately took no point of view.
Do you think, at some point, this podcast is going to exist for a very long time. Do you think there's just, an old conservative man who listens to up to this episode until realizing that we're socialists and throws his computer across the room?
I hope so. I really hope so.
I finally found a podcast that was addressing my interests, and now I find out it's run by a couple of filthy socialists?
Andy is surprised and actually a little bit pleased that is why Opie did not give money to the platforms that are in place, because Opie was giving his money directly.
This was round 3 of the argument, is basically him finding out that Opie is out charitying him a little bit.
Maybe. I mean,
he refers to himself as eating crow, so he basically waves a white flag.
Yeah, he gives up. He's like, all right. And the socialist in me is saying, yeah, direct action is always best. Sometimes the systems are flawed. A lot of charities are shit.
I mean, I sort of, connected a little bit to the charity vanity thing, because I used to work for a company, I'm not in any way going to reference it, that would attend and work at a lot of charities, like galas and stuff like that. Any fundraising stuff. And basically, every time I would go there, I would witness a massive, massive amount of money being wasted on getting the people to donate money, mostly through, insane level of decorations and insane incentives and, the most glorious food I've ever seen in my entire life. And it would almost always devolve into hedonism.
Yep.
It's the only job I've ever had where I've seen 2 people fuck in a bathroom.
I have a charity ball story.
Go for it.
Yeah. This was after I moved to Philadelphia. This is probably, I don't know, summer of 2012. And I was making a little extra money by doing ghostwriting for a couple of blogs. A couple of, travel blogs or whatnot, or, tourist stuff. It's shit jobs if you've ever done this. And the money sucks. But sometimes you get free perks out of the deal, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
In this particular time, I was covering a story about some guy who trekked to Antarctica, and he was giving a talk about it downtown at WHYY. And I had already written the article promoting this event, so I got to go to the event, and I showed up, I ate their food, I didn't know anyone there, I went by myself, I was the youngest person there, I was sat at this table with the most boring NPR donors imaginable.
Oh.
So I bounced. I ate the food and bailed. But I'm still down. I'm dressed up very nicely. It's Saturday night. I'm in downtown. I'm like, yeah, what am I going to do? So I wander down the street, and I see the National Constitution Center. And I think, you know what? I've lived in Philadelphia a few months. I haven't seen the Constitution. Fun fact, the Constitution is not at the National Constitution Center. It is at the Smithsonian, or at the archives in Washington, D.C., being protected from Nicolas Cage. But I decided, you've seen the Constitution Center, there's a big lawn, right, that you walk up. So I start to walk up this lawn, and as I look, I see that, all the lights are on, and there's, spotlights, and people are pulling up in limos, and, there's valets and stuff, and people outside taking stuff. I don't expect to go in. I just wonder what's going on. So I kind of walk in, and because I'm wearing a suit, I'm not wearing a nice suit, mind you, but because I'm very
Is it a tux?
I'm not wearing a tux.
Okay.
I'm just wearing, a suit jacket and tie. And the people at the door, not doing their job at all, they're going, come on in, sir. And I go, okay.
That's like that 30 Rock joke of, if you're dressed like a pilot and walking briskly, you can get anywhere.
It's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
So I wander in, and I'm very confused about what is happening. Because, there's a big stage, everyone's dressed up very nicely. My suit came from frickin' Goodwill. So I'm very uncomfortable. I don't know what's happening. But over in the corner, there's, it's set up like a Willy Wonka, Candyland, and there's a playhouse and whatnot, and there's a children's section, and I go up the stairs, and there's like a huge banquet and a buffet like set up. So I find somebody who thinks who looks like they work there. I don't know, and this is my Marty Schneider Master of Disguise like plan. Is I say, so I'm a reporter, and if you were gonna describe this scenario,
God damn it.
Somebody on the street,
you better have been under 24.
I'm straight up fletching this shit.
No, you are the actual movie master of disguising it.
Yeah. And this young woman who I guess is like a volunteer there tells me where I'm at. I am crashing a huge banquet for not the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, but something like Children's Health Fund or what have you. And it's exactly the way you described it. It is like extravagance. They are auctioning off diamonds.
Yeah.
And here's the really weird and fucked up one. So I definitely grab a plate and start eating the rich people food.
Yeah.
Because of course I do. And I take in full advantage of their open bar. But here's what's really fucked up, right? They're trying to, like, raise money for, like, sick children. So they start to trot up some of their, like, success stories. They bring these sick kids on the stage. And, like, part of it's really sweet because they give these kids, like a red carpet treatment. They get to walk up and, like, this is what I've been doing. And I'm more than my sickness. I can do this. And, like, the live band is playing the Rocky theme. This one girl who was like 14 was like very determined. She like gets to the red carpet. She thrusts her crutches into her mom's arms, and she's like, "I can do this on my own." Like the room is just in tears. I'm like, "Why am I doing this?" But it's also like. It's also very strange because they're like...
Yours sounds good.
No, but it's very strange, though, because they're plotting these sick kids up, and they're basically like, look at these cute, wonderful kids. If you don't give us money, they're going to die.
I mean, that is sort of the thing of, like, they have to, like, wring the money out of these people.
Oh, they were doing it. I mean, I bought some raffle tickets I could not afford.
I mean, I would say, like, yours is more affirming because, like mine, like, I would always see, like, they would have to, like, they would barely mention the thing, like, you're here for heart disease, but also, if you give us enough money, you can win a meeting with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very weird thing. And at that point, I'm like, I feel very uncomfortable crashing this, so I'm like, I gotta go. And I'm also a little drunk, so I start to feel guilty about this, so I decided to come clean to the young woman who was, like, volunteering at the event. I decided to...
Worst idea.
It was a terrible idea.
It's not advisable.
I was like, hey, yeah, no, I'm not a reporter. I just walked in. She was like, what? I was like, yeah, I just walked in. I have no idea. And then she was like, that's kind of cool. And then I got her number, and we made out once, and I never saw her again. The end.
How did this story end with your dick? God damn it. We were doing social commentary and you made it about your penis. God damn it. That was such a long walk.
That's my charity story. The rest of the episode is basically nothing. There's a little bit that I do like. So basically the epilogue of this, essentially, is Andy talking to Tom outside. Annabelle for being like... Annabelle only gets one scene in this entire movie.
Annabelle gets one scene, but her presence is near omniscient. She's everywhere. She's like Yahweh.
Yeah. And so Tom and Andy are talking outside. I guess Annabelle and Tom have patched their shit up. They went on a long walk. They talked together, and
they boned down.
They definitely boned. Andy's like, "Well, what are you gonna do about that grave over there?" And there's this, like, really neat little bit where he's just like, well, I'm not a drinking man anymore. And, you know, the old Tom, the one that drank, that's the one that's buried in that cemetery. And it's like, it's kind of like...
It's poetic.
Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think we ever see Tom and Annabelle ever again, so let's just assume they had a happy ending.
Honestly, I would have assumed that we would have never seen Otis again based off his brief appearance in episode 2. But I can discount nothing.
That's true.
But yeah, no, it's honestly, who's the writer of this episode again? Because he's basically the best one.
This is Arthur Stander.
Right, so just in terms of...
Who also wrote Runaway Kid and Andy the Matchmaker.
Really, the best writer. Just, like, maybe he goes the most off the rails out of all of them. He's, like, his stories are the most technically competent.
Yeah. And he's experimenting. He's the only one who's done the A-B plot right now.
I like to think that this was the first A-B plot, and people at home watching this were like... What the fuck? There's a second story inside the story!
Way too much shit for us to keep track of!
Martha, call the police! They're doing 2 stories!
Alright, so let's move on to episode 9, A Feud Is A Feud. Again, a Don Weiss episode, this time directed or written by David Adler. Last time we saw David Adler was at Irresistible Andy. So, but I really like this episode, and I'm gonna once again read the Wikipedia one-sentence summary of this. Andy seeks to end a long-running family feud before joining 2 lovers, one from each family, in marriage.
Yeah, so this episode has actually a really neat idea that I'm surprised I needed to watch the Andy Griffith Show to see, which is Romeo and Juliet, but with Hatfields and McCoys, the legendary feuding families.
2 hillbillies of Verona, yeah.
Yeah, no, they do Romeo and Juliet basically to the letter, aggressively referencing that with a very thinly veiled Hatfields and McCoys. So the episode opens with a horrifying scene.
So it opens up with 2 young people coming to Andy's house in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. And I want to point out, I really like the music that is played at this point. Mm-hmm. It's very like twangy but also haunting, and it kind of fades into a like jaunty, jazzy version of the Andy Griffith Show. Like exactly what you would expect a sitcom in the 50s and 60s to sound like.
Yeah.
But like the stuff that's before it is really good. And I'm going to play a clip here. Is these young people come to the window, or they come to Andy's house late at night. Aunt B looks out the door, knows this is what these people are here for. Apparently this is something that happens on the reg, I guess, because they have a procedure in place.
They have garments ready.
Right. So remember, Andy is not just the sheriff of Mayberry. He is also the justice of the peace. Mm-hmm. Which means he's the one who is able to perform weddings. Especially weddings for young people who want to get married in the middle of the night. And even though Andy does not sleep in, like, old-timey, like, Ebenezer Scrooge bedrobes,
they put them on him for the, in Aunt B's words, a story.
Right, like it's for optics, basically.
Which, I feel like, if I were getting married in the middle of the night, I'd prefer for my sheriff to not be currently wearing an old-timey bedrobe with a tasseled cap. Well, you know, the triangle cap.
Yeah.
Which, they're doing that for, like, theatrics, and the person be like, I'd rather if you were just dressed like a human adult.
please just be a person.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Please, this is the most important day of my life. Don't dress like an idiot for it.
So Opie's there, and the whole house is awake.
I don't know why they woke up Opie.
I don't know.
There's weird decisions made throughout this episode. That's the first one.
They need to have a witness.
They need to have a child there. You can't have a wedding without a child.
Maybe he's the ring bearer. You know, this is the second wedding that we've seen in the series, and both of them, like, Opie is the only witness. They need the
first
Opie.
One that Opie didn't ruin. It was still ruined, but not by Opie.
Well, they need Opie to sign the wedding certificate.
Was that established? Why do they keep having this fucking illiterate child signing wedding certificates? There's no way. Does that hold up in court?
I'm saying when you get married, witnesses need to sign the certificate. And apparently no one who gets married around here knows anyone.
All marriage certificates need to be signed by Ron Howard. It's not legitimate unless Ron Howard watches. That holds up today.
That's still the law.
Yes. I just hurt myself punching my leg. Alright, this idyllic wedding scene, not really idyllic, these two super hot people that we mentioned how hot they were earlier, they're insanely hot, both of them. They're having a wedding, Andy's half-assedly officiating it, as Andy does most things.
Yeah, and then...
two crazed gun-wielding hillbillies burst in.
With shotguns, and they're just, screaming.
We can't overstate, you'd think a lot of the things on this show, we overstate the level of intensity of them. We really can't understate two hillbillies kicking a door, waving around double-barrel shotguns, and then point them at Ronnie Howard's face.
I'm sorry, there's a shot, and I have to point out that Don Weiss deliberately included this shot, that Opie is hiding behind the couch, terrified.
Before Opie hides behind the couch, terrified, a gun is pointed at Opie's head, and Sheriff Taylor is like, what's going on?
Yeah, he's very,
explain yourself.
He's very sarcastic about this, and it's very weird that these two dudes, point shotguns at the town sheriff in his home, and no one seems to have a problem.
Alright, so throughout the entire episode, he's trying to resolve an ongoing problem. Remember that two men burst into the house, pointed shotguns at the sheriff and his child's face, and he could have arrested them for that at literally any time.
Any moment.
He could have put those men in at whatever level of jail he felt like.
Yeah, remember, this is one of the times when Andy should be doing his job. So let's go ahead and explain why these two men were so angry that these children were...
We shouldn't call them men, we should call them crazed hillbillies.
Let's go ahead and explain why these crazed hillbillies were so angry.
Thank you.
So, these are their adult children. And... as Andy realizes, he looks at their marriage certificate and realizes that they are the children of the Wakefields and the Carters, which are the Hatfields and McCoys of...
the legendary feuding families. The two families that frequently try and succeed at killing each other.
Yeah, they've been fighting for 87 years. I want to take a pause here and point out that the names of the character actors, who I'm sure if I looked at their IMDb credits, they probably are a whole bunch of John Ford westerns and stuff. But the names of the actors playing these two gentlemen are Chubby Johnson and Arthur Honeycutt.
Yes.
So Johnson and Honeycutt.
I don't even have a funny thing to say about that. That's just deeply gratifying.
Yeah. So these two men, Chubby Johnson and Arthur Honeycutt, are very mad that their children are going to get married.
I'm sorry, what are the names of the people that are deeply...
Chubby Johnson and Arthur Honeycutt.
God damn it.
Yeah.
It's magnificent.
Andy decides against officiating the wedding, despite the fact that, as the young man points out, both of these people are 18.
He legally has to.
He legally has to do it. And Andy says, nope. And I guess at that point you're just screwed because there's only one person in town that can do a wedding.
Andy's response is, there are shotguns pointed at me, I'm not going to do this. I don't get why Andy's response is, there are shotguns pointed at me and my family. I'm going to at least suggest the concept of arrest to these men. I'm going to be like, hey, you're not allowed to shoot a sheriff. That's heavily frowned upon by most of the government. Which, he's just like, alright, well, you guys have the shotguns, therefore, you're the boss of this moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Which maybe that's, a thing to the fact that Ian referenced last time, which is apparently we're in, reverse Mad Max times, where we hadn't invented laws yet.
I mean, to be fair, he de-escalates the situation. He just kind of says, I'm not gonna do this, everyone get out of my house, good night. No one dies, and that could have turned into a bloodbath. It could have been like the plot of Free Fire.
There was a shotgun pointed at his child's head.
Yeah, so everybody leaves, and everyone goes back to bed, and the next morning is the next scene, and Andy comes down to breakfast, and Aunt B and Opie are not talking to him.
Cold shouldering the fuck out of him.
Giving him just the cold shoulder. And he's like, what the hell's going on here? And they both say, you absolute coward.
Yeah, there was... I feel like it's the most he has ever been called out in the show, in that, Aunt B and Opie were like, We're basically like, two grown men pointed shotguns at us. What's the point of you? Like, why do we allow you to do all this shit if a crazed hillbilly can point a shotgun at my tiny child face and feel no consequences? You sent a man to jail the other day because you felt like it, and another one can threaten to fill my child head with buckshot and feel no fucking consequences whatsoever. You don't get any eggs, Andy. You can go straight to hell. Like, that's the general implication.
Except you're slightly off because they're mad that he didn't marry those people anyway. They were just like, it was your job to marry that guy.
I'm kind of on their team. He should have married him. Yeah, like, what are they going to do? Shoot a sheriff in his own home? Execute an entire family?
So in order to explain his reasoning, again, to cover his ass in front of his, toddler child.
Yes. His very small child who hates his guts right now.
Andy explains that this is not the first time that feuding families have had their children want to get together. And he starts to tell a Cliff Notes version of Romeo and Juliet.
And he seen Juliet come down these high steps, and he was so struck by her that he give a soliloquy right there.
What's a soliloquy, Paul?
Well, a soliloquy is where you kind of look way off and kind of talk to yourself.
Oh.
They used to do that a whole lot back then. You do it today and somebody will take you away. But that's what he was doing. And this fella Tybalt, a cousin of Juliet's, come upon him with his sword drawed, ready to pick a fight with him right there. But Juliet's daddy, he didn't want no bloodshed right there in his living room. So all he done, he run Romeo off. But Romeo didn't go straight home.
He didn't?
No. He went out and hid in the yard. And after a while, he seen this light come on over yonder. And he says, he says, hark. They said hark a whole lot back then. He says, hark, what light by yonder window shines. Well, Juliet, she stepped out onto this stoop right then. And she give a soliloquy. And somewhere in it, she says, Romeo, Romeo. She says, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Well, he popped up and says, I'm right here. And that's where they had that balcony scene.
Okay, so post-clip, the thing, I listened to this the first time and thought I was crazy listening to it. Listened to it a second time and realized I was sane.
It goes on for 8 minutes, we should point out.
So a crazy way to tell a story is to tell it more granularly the longer you're telling it. Because what he basically does is he describes Act 1 of the play, and then he describes the next scene after Act 1, and then he describes half of the next scene after that, and then by the end, he is doing line readings and stage directions. So basically, the longer you tell the scene, the longer you tell the story, the more detailed you are telling it. It's like a Russian nesting story.
I like that, though. I really like that.
It was deeply frustrating.
No, I liked it a lot because it was a good dad moment for Andy. Because interspersed with shots of, Andy telling the story are, shots of Opie and a little bit of Andy, but shots of Opie getting really into it. Opie's, on the edge of his seat. So if you're a dad telling a story to your son, and you see that your son's getting really into it, you're gonna start to bluster. You're gonna start to get up really big about it.
The way he was telling the story made me think that
he explains what a soliloquy is at some point.
The way that he was telling the story made me feel like no one in that time period knew about Romeo and Juliet even vaguely, and just people there were entire families sitting at home and be and then what happened in Romeo and Juliet? Did they know about Romeo and Juliet?
It's the 60s, man. They know that Romeo and Juliet exist.
The way Andy was telling this story put me in genuine doubt. I was the way he told it, I was do these Did they not know about Romeo and Juliet back then? Was he breaking the concept of Romeo and Juliet?
You know that movie that like everybody watches in 9th grade and you're all surprised when Juliet's boobs show up? That movie is going to get made in like 6 more years. Like, people know what that is. So he explains the concept of Romeo and Juliet.
No.
He explains all of Romeo and Juliet.
He explains the first half of Romeo and Juliet as a concept, and then he individually acts out the second half. I'm upset about this. I won't allow you to paint over it.
You're very oddly upset by this.
Yeah, no, it freaked me out.
So Andy gets the idea, after telling the story, that if he were Friar Lawrence in the story, which he is at this point, he would go ahead and find out why the families were feuding and see if he could put an end to the feud first before marrying him. Mm-hmm. And then he sets off to do exactly that.
And also, he presents this idea as if it was his plan the entire time to Opie and Aunt B, which it clearly was not.
Yeah.
He clearly pulled this out of his ass because they weren't giving him eggs.
And then he leaves without his breakfast anyway.
Yes!
So he fucks off and then goes to one of them, Chubby Johnson, I think, or whatever. He goes to the Carter's house.
Chubby Johnson.
Wakefield and Carter, right? Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, is a great name for a country duo.
It really is.
Yeah, so he goes to the Carter's house, and he asks, he sees this man sitting on the porch with a shotgun, just kind of firing aimlessly in the woods.
Wildly firing a shotgun into the distance.
And Andy's just like, there's no one out there, right? There's nobody there. And he asks, why are you feuding with this family? And the answer basically comes down to, because.
But yeah. Before we get into that, I just want to circle back to episodes ago where Don Knotts was like, if only there was one crime in this town. Are you, did no one tell you about the fact that there's, 17 attempted murders in Mayberry every hour?
In Mayberry, it doesn't count if you shoot at someone if you have the decency to miss.
No, counterpoint. It doesn't count as a crime if you have the decency to declare that it is a feud. Because he's not like, I don't want any murder in my living room. He's like, oh no feuding here. No feuding in the Griffith house. I think, back then, if you were like, hey, this is part of a feud, they were like, well, we can't enforce any laws now.
It's like how Michael Scott thinks bankruptcy works.
Yes!
I declare a feud!
They're like, hold off, Barney. They're allowed to fire buckshot as much as they want into each other's faces.
If you yell Mortal Kombat, you're allowed to beat each other to death first. That's how it works.
God, that would rule.
It's basically how it works in Seattle.
Elaborate immediately.
In the city of Seattle, and I think...
If you're full of shit, why did you choose Seattle? Keep going.
This is a real thing. In the city of Seattle, and I think the state of Washington, street brawling is legal. Here are the rules. Number 1, both parties have to consent. Yes, we are in a street brawl. Number 2, you have to be outside. Number 3, you have to be barefoot for some reason.
Yes.
And number 4, when one party is knocked to the ground, the fight is over until that party gets back up and says, I am ready to fight again. Other than that, you can fight in the streets in Seattle.
I'm going to take a minute, and I want every second of silence to remain in the podcast where I decide whether or not you're a liar. If that was at all true, why Seattle? Because that's the cost of living in that city is so high. Why would that be there and not There's no way that's true.
That's absolutely true.
I don't believe you, because it's Seattle. The cost of living there is insane. Why would they allow street fights? Why rich people do dumb shit?
Also, the cost of living just became high there in the past couple of years.
They would be required to change city ordinances.
This law has been on the books for a long time.
We got real off the rail.
So he goes to the Carters and says, why are you fighting the Wakefield?
I'm really impressed that you're remembering the names of these fucking towns.
He goes to the Wakefield, he asks, why are you fighting with the Carters? They say, I don't fucking know. And so Andy hatches this scheme. He realizes, wait, we've had this feud going on for years, but no one has actually shot each other.
Wait, let me interject a thing, because this is, if not the first, at least the best bestiality joke I've seen on network television, where she's like, there's been one instance of a member of our family being injured. And she's like, oh, what is it? And she's like, he was bit by a donkey. It was like, where? On a place that's too private to mention. So there is, on the Andy Griffith Show, a recorded event of a guy getting bit on the dick because he was getting blown by a donkey.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
That happened! She literally says, on an unmentionable place.
Yeah, I assumed it was his butt, dude.
Fuck you! No, that was a bestiality joke. Are you kidding me?
I assumed it was his butt. As a dude who has been bit on the butt by a farm animal before, I assumed it was his butt.
No, it was clearly his dick.
I'm not going to tell that story because you're not going to devote the entire episode.
No. We are getting into this. She refers to... Hold on. I think we might need to pause and watch the episode, because that donkey bit that dude on the dick.
Okay, fine. I'll concede.
Wait, seriously, we will, I am down to pause it.
Shut up, I don't care, we're moving on.
Okay, no. The donkey, it is maybe the first bestiality joke on network television. It skates way the fuck under the radar. She tells the story of, what are the Hatfield and McCoy names again?
Carter and Wakefield.
One of the Carters getting bit on the dick by a donkey, and they really skate over it.
I feel like if you got bit by a donkey, you wouldn't have a dick anymore.
I can't make any claims about the jaw pressure of a donkey. I have not studied in the subject. I don't know whether or not a donkey could bite your dick clean off. I won't debate that one way or the other.
This is the furthest off track of ever.
I feel like no, because I really just assumed watching that episode that was a bestiality joke.
They bit him on the butt, dude.
Why would it
joke?
Why would?
Who fucking cares?
This may be a statement on me that I was immediately like, bold move, Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah, dude, that says more about you than it does about me.
I was like, oh, you know what? Andy Griffith Show was really ahead of his time making a joke.
Bestiality jokes.
When she said, an unmentionable place, I would just...
You went straight to the dick.
Well, I wouldn't count a butt as an unmentionable place.
It is 1960.
Oh, damn it, that's true. I was really impressed with Andy Griffith. I was like, top-notch bestiality joke, the Andy Griffith Show.
I like your version better.
Yeah.
So, okay. This is Andy's scheme. Once he realizes that the two parties, the two feuding families, don't actually really want to feud anymore, they're just kind of keeping up appearances.
Well, the thing established is that there's been no body count whatsoever in the entire feud.
Yeah, it's a very clean feud.
Yeah.
And no one really remembers why they're feuding in the first place. So, Andy's plan to put this to bed is to get the two men together, the patriarchs of the family, and have them have them have a duel.
Yes.
He lines them up. He says, he references, this is how the French do it. I learned this when I was in the war. We now know that Andy was stationed in France. Mm-hmm.
Which, the place where the most shit happened.
Andy and Barney may have been at D-Day, and we have to, make our peace with that.
That would rule so bad. If in the background of Saving Private Ryan, Andy Griffith and Barney Fife were just...
bumbling through?
Yeah, just bumbling through, but also mowing down Germans.
Let's also figure, Andy Griffith was the 1960 Tom Hanks. If you made Saving Private Ryan in 1960, you would have earn this. You would absolutely cast Andy Griffith in that role.
My erection just punctured the sky.
Damn, dude, I really want that.
God damn it. No, I really want to know more about Andy Griffith's time in the war.
If you did Saving Private Ryan in the 1960s and Andy Griffith was your Tom Hanks character, Like, Private Ryan would be like Steve McQueen. Like, it would rule.
Yeah. Wait, who would Barney Fife be?
I'm talking Andy Griffith, the actor.
Right.
Don Knotts serves no purpose.
Okay, alright, yeah.
I'm talking about, like, John Ford's...
That's been said about Don Knotts a lot.
But, anyway, so
would you think that in World War II, we're going on a tangent.
We are still doing this bit, okay.
Do you think that in World War II, Barney Fife or Andy Griffith would be the killing machine?
Here's the thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Maybe the reason why they won't let Fife have more than one bullet is that's all he needs.
Like if we give you more than 2 bullets, you can mow down the entire state.
Like, maybe it's like an enemy at the gates thing, right? Like, maybe Fife is actually a sniper. We've seen him not be able to hold a pistol, right? And he strokes those rifles lovingly. Maybe Barney Fife was a sniper. Maybe he's like fucking Chris Kyle. Like,
maybe, yeah, Barney Fife, like at one point, Don Knotts is going to take off his shirt and he'll have like a tattoo count of his kills.
Yeah.
And it'll be just like the entire back.
27 confirmed kills. Barney Fife, that's what I'm talking about.
Alright, you're calling that early? I really am hoping that at some point the show will either confirm or deny that.
Alright, so back to the Wakefields and the Carters.
Mm-hmm.
Andy sets up a duel between the 2 patriarchs.
Mm-hmm.
He has them line up. He tells them, you guys are gonna walk away 10 paces, and then you're gonna draw on each other.
Yet another who's on first occurs.
They shtick.
Would you call, is this just generally defined as shtick?
It's vaudevillian, I would say.
Yeah.
Obviously these 2 men do not want to shoot at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep dancing around it, and Andy keeps finding different reasons for them to do it.
It should be said that Andy, while explaining the rules of the duel to them, unloads their shotguns. So he's having them do this with empty shotguns.
Yeah, no one is in any danger here. And in fact, this is the only time so far that we've seen Andy fire a pistol.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say it's a blank. Like, I'm thinking it's like a starting pistol.
No, I choose to believe that Andy was shooting a real gun in the air.
Okay, whatever. Yeah. I'm choosing to believe it was a blank.
That's fair. We both need interpretations of this show to get through the day.
Sure. And he convinces them to shoot at each other. He does the, count off, and then he fires his pistol into the air and scares both men away.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, in his mind, ending the feud.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, he's getting ready to marry these 2 young people again, and at this point, Mr. Carter and Mr. Wakefield have a different reason for not marrying the 2, which is, we're both clearly cowards. If you merged our bloodlines, you would create the most cowardly human being on the planet.
Which is incredible.
A weird, fucked up version of eugenics on this.
Honestly, a point that more people should make in terms of their...
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you should be like, my family kind of sucks, your family kind of sucks. If we had a kid, there's a good chance that kid would suck.
Even just, like a lot more people in the world should just look at themselves and be like, I suck. My bloodline should not be carried on. I
feel like this episode's revealing a lot about you, Dan.
I mean... I shouldn't exist. In terms of my ancestry, someone fucked up. The Ludwigs should have probably died in the 1800s.
Wow, buddy.
All right, yeah.
So, to disprove this theory, the 2 young star-crossed lovers come in and stand up to their patriarchs. Not their respective, but each other's patriarchs.
The sexy star-crossed lovers. I want that on the books.
Yeah, these 2 sexy star-crossed lovers show up, and they're both like, well, you know what? If I can't marry, you might as well shoot me. So they stand up to their patriarchs, and Andy goes, well, clearly they're not cowards. And then, he says, these 2 are so not cowardly, any kid that came from them would be a genuine hero right out the gate. Andy Griffith does not understand genetics. Maybe he was better in English class and science class, whatever. And so they say, you know what? Fine, it's time to get married. And then, even though it's the middle of the day, they make him put on the stupid Ebenezer Scrooge cap. It's really funny. I like this episode a lot.
And but the Hillbillies hold the entire wedding procession at shotgun on the logic of, we want to make sure this child happens as soon as possible, with the general implication being that there are going to be two hillbilly dads pointing their guns at the conception of this child. It's so great. It's the best episode of the entire show so far.
Okay, yeah, I'll give it to you. Yeah, I think so too.
It's the funny, with the aside of the weird retelling of Shakespeare, there's nothing wrong with the episode.
That's the best part. What are you talking about?
It's alright. It's not necessarily bad, but it's the most insane thing I've seen on a TV show.
So, let's go ahead and go to our ratings. And I want to point out something. We talked earlier about how Barney Fife is not present for this.
Yeah.
Which means both of our Fife-O-meter scores are going to be really low. So if this is the first time you tuned in, we rate our episodes on two factors. There's the Andy meter, which is how good is the episode. Mm-hmm. And then there's the Fife-O-meter, which is on a scale of 1 to 10 Fifes, how horrifying is this episode? So, let's start with Opie's Charity. Mm-hmm. Scale of 1 to 10 Andys. I'm going to say 7.5, maybe even 8 Andys. I like this episode a lot because it's just so weird.
I'm going to lowball it with 7.
Okay, alright. Yeah. I'm going to go a little higher than that. But I enjoyed this episode.
Yeah. So, I'm going to be a little more conservative.
Sure. And on a Fife-O-meter, Opie's Charity, nothing, really.
No, nothing.
I mean, objective about it. It doesn't really take any stance whatsoever.
It really depends on your specific views on economics and and economic theory, and even then, you're gonna have a hard time prescribing any morality to this thing because
no one cares.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna say 1 Fife.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna just say 0 Fifes.
0 Fifes for a 0 Fife episode.
Yeah.
Hatfield and McCoy, the next episode, I don't recall the title, whatever.
The Tale of Two Hillbillies.
The Tale of Two Hillbillies. Andy meter, 9?
It's, 9. It's one of the best episodes so far.
It's up there next to Manhunt.
Yeah, I'd say it beats Manhunt.
So it's good. It's a very good episode. I'm going to give it 9 Andys. And on a Fife score...
Okay, alright. So
I'm going to give it at least 2 Fifes, because we've established that apparently you can just shoot wildly at people and wave a gun around and no one cares.
Oh, wait a minute. No. We're going to deliberate on this. So, on one hand, there's nothing, the moral of the story isn't horrifying, which is out of the ordinary for a...
Andy Griffith show. Yeah.
But on the other, shotgun is pointed at a child's head, and very little hay is made out of that.
It's out of character for a Don Weiss episode. Yeah.
God, I'm gonna say 5 Fifes.
I'm gonna say 3. I'm gonna say 3 Fifes.
Really?
Yeah.
A shotgun was pointed at a child's head. You sure you want to establish that as your metric for 3 Fifes?
3 Fifes.
Little Ronnie Howard almost met his fucking maker on this episode.
I feel I'm setting myself low because I feel like it's gonna get worse. I'm giving myself a low baseline.
I mean, how much? Again, 3 out of 10 in terms of horrifying. A child looked a shotgun in the eye.
You're not 4. 4.
Okay, 4. The fact that I teased 4 out of you is insane for this fucking show.
Opie has his Uncle Barney around. He's used to guns being pointed at him.
You let the record show that you have a very loose view on child murder.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Alright, so...
maybe when they actually shoot Opie, my entire metric is going to be shot to hell.
I'm saving myself for that. That is our episode for today. Thank you very much for joining us here on Breaking Mayberry for a very special episode where we both enjoyed everything.
I feel like the loudest episode we've done.
The next time we're talking about Ellie for Council... We're talking about an episode that questions whether or not women should be able to vote. And then we're talking about Stranger in Town, which is the most Twilight Zone of these episodes. So if you don't want to miss those, be sure to subscribe. Please make sure to like, review. We'll be on iTunes by this point.
Yes.
So You can listen to us on SoundCloud. Be sure to share us with your friends. Give us a review. Give us a rating. It definitely helps us. It definitely helps us show up in search results and gets us in the earbuds of other people. So if you like the show, please subscribe. Please rate. Please
and you
share.
know, I'm going to throw out, tweet at Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Like, specifically tweet at Ron Howard. I want to be a blip on his consciousness.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, just like kind of. I'm not saying harass Ron Howard,
but you're not saying.
But I said those words, and then I'm moving on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time, we'll see you all down at the fishing hole. Talking about Miss Rosemary, Barney's girlfriend?
Yeah.
According to the ultra reliable Mayberry Wikia, according to that, this is the last time we see Miss Rosemary, but that actress is recast playing different characters several times. So that might explain some of your confusion.
Wait, like Barney Fife is fucking an entirely different woman in each of those times? I just assumed it was consistently the same woman he'd courted.
Yeah, like, that would be the natural assumption.
Is Barney Fife laying pipe all over Mayberry?
Like, Barney Fife is one of... I mean, like, he's at least in the top 4 of Mayberry's most eligible bachelors. We've met the other 3.
This is a fictitious development. This isn't even a real thing, and that makes me insecure.
Yeah,
that upsets me that Barney Fife is managing to sleep with... The fact that Barney Fife has had sex with more than one woman so far in the show, if that's true, is...
I feel like they would call it relations. He's had relations.
He's been calling on her.
Been calling.
Whoa. That pronunciation got away from you.
Yeah.